is back, baby. I'm on gas. Yo, Flex Quick. It's fat.
You there, sitting at home, acknowledge me.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Turnbuckle Weekly Podcast. We're still going, brother. I am, as always, your host, the master of Mary Jane, the indica icon, the Kush commander, if you will, Casey. And with me is my co-host, my tag team partner, and breaking news to him, Raja Jackson's new sparring partner, Leon.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Hey, buddy. Today's special.
It is special.
I'm gonna tell you why. We're doing a first for our show. I've done a part 2. I've done a part 3. But we together have not done a part 2.
That's right.
And we needed a part 2 because, as was said last time, we didn't even get to the fun stuff.
We didn't. We just scratched the surface.
So I'm not eating up no more of this man's airtime. With us again for part 2, CCW Chris Waddell. How's it going, man?
Hello. It's good to talk to everybody again. Listen, every time you do your intro, you give me subject matter. I'm like, well, let's talk about that. I didn't realize you were a pothead. So
Majorly.
I feel like that's another thing we can high five each other about. But listen, there's always a time for the indica. But I'm more of a sativa man myself. I need something little kick in the ass. You know what I mean?
See, that's what I was explaining to Leon. He's a square, right? I don't think he's ever, smoked a cigarette in his life kind of deal. So he asked me because I ran some of these names by him, and he was like, what is indica? And so I was like, oh my God. So I had to break down what strains are, and then I explained it to him. I'm a sativa guy. Indicas give me panic attacks. Like, it's crazy.
Listen, my whole thing is this, okay? Leon,
yes, sir.
Okay. If you don't smoke, it's okay, but check this out. This is what I always tell people. I was hardcore straight edge for a long time, like up until I was about 34, 35 years old. I'm 38 now. To give you an idea, I think the first time I ever smoked weed or ate weed, for a long time I wouldn't even smoke it. I swore off to smoking it. I would just eat it. Yeah. And that was probably 2022. So I experienced life, I felt like all my entertainment and everything from a very straight edge standpoint. And then we went on my brother's bachelor party to Las Vegas. And I'd always heard that that weed helps headaches, and I had pretty bad migraine headaches. So I thought, well, if I get a headache in Las Vegas, what better place to experience marijuana for the first time than in Vegas? And sure enough, I had really bad jet lag when we got off the flight. That first night, we went to the largest dispensary in the country. I think it's called Planet 13 over in Vegas. Yeah. And we bought way too much weed for a bunch of people who had never consumed it. And I already knew the warning signs. Everybody tells you, especially when it's involving edibles, they say, well, listen, if you take it, you don't feel it, you give it a little longer because it'll kick in later. Right. Well, I thought I gave it enough time. I took a bite of the candy bar that I had, gave it a half hour. It didn't work. I was like, well, half hour is plenty. I ate another piece. And then a buddy of mine said, yeah, but you have to try these macaroons. They are great. And I said, okay. And so I had one of those too. And I know I'm already off in the weeds, out speaking both of you, but
no, you're fine, dude.
A long story short, everybody's planning what they're doing that night while this high is setting in. We're planning what we're going to do. And my brother and several of our friends, Jordan Whitaker, who else? 747 may have been part of that group, but Stonewall, they wanted to go see a GCW show in Vegas, or I think it was GCW. It was some mud show, but either way, they're like, let's go see this wrestling show. And I'm like, excuse my language.
Oh, you're good.
You're telling me that we're going to Vegas for the first time and you are going to watch wrestling? What is wrong with you? There's so many things to do. So while they all went to see the wrestling show, I went to Cirque du Soleil. I went to see the O show, which is in the Grand Bellagio Hotel. So a couple of things. And I'll get to my main point. And if I'm talking too much, tell me to shut up. We got other things to talk about.
No, let's go, dude.
So they drop me off in the parking garage, and they're going to take the car. And I mean, it's like the moment that I get in the parking garage, the high kicks in, just immediate. And I'm like, oh no. So it was a maze. If you all have ever been to Vegas or been in these hotels are actually set up more like mini cities. They want you to go around and buy from their shops and their stores and their restaurants and their casinos. So I was lost in the Bellagio Hotel, and I was paranoid as hell. But I ended up finally making it to the show, watched the show, and I felt like that show lasted forever. Anybody that smokes weed knows time kind of stands still.
It does.
And I called them, and I said, hey, my show's over. Are you all coming to get me? And Ray said, no, this show's still going on. And I said, what match are you in? And he said, match 2. And I said, what? I said, how many matches are there? He said, I think there's 11. And I said, oh my God. So I decided that I was going to walk back to the hotel, which was about a mile away from the Bellagio. And so my first experience being high was walking the streets by myself, walking the Vegas Strip, and not being freaked out about everything. We ended up going to a Hooters later that night, and I passed out into a big plate of nachos. So, But the reason I say all that is, I don't know if you're completely closed off to the idea, but I'll say this, and this is for your listeners too. I spent half of my life being completely sober from everything. No smoking, no marijuana, no alcohol. I very rarely drink at this point, and I don't smoke cigarettes because I'm not disgusting. But the thing is, now that I've started to experience things again, I can watch the same movie that I've already watched. I can listen to the same music that I've already listened to. I can go on the same trips, the same theme parks, and it's an entirely different experience. It's almost as if it opens your horizons, it opens your mind, it opens your eyes and feelings to everything in a different way. So if it's not your thing right now, no problem. Peer pressure's not cool, but I will say, if you ever get the itch to do it. I don't think you'll regret it.
See, I told him, I said, it's kind of like Prozac. Not everybody needs it. I was like, we're just gonna be real. You wouldn't take a Xanax unless you're gonna get high, but you wouldn't take a Xanax if you didn't need it. It's not for everyone. I was like, believe that, because like my first time getting stoned was by smoking at 14 years old in the trailer park. That's how you do it in Alabama, where I was. That's how we did it.
Out in Alabama.
I hung out with some little shithills, is the best words I can give them. And my mother hated all three of these gentlemen. Still to this day, she's like, one of them's in prison, and she's like, he belongs there. Because she's, old Christian conservative woman, she'd punish him. And so I'm down there smoking, and they're like, hey, let's smoke his joint. And I'd never done anything before, except like I drank a beer because my dad was drunk and was like, drink it or you're a bitch or whatever he said. And I like drank the beer. That's all I had done. And I'm smoking this joint, and they were like, how do you feel? And I was like, I feel really weird. And they were like, yeah. They were like, it makes you feel weird. And I was like, why is my mouth numb? And they all just die laughing. And I was like, what? And I was like, why is my mouth numb? My heart is going like crazy. And one of them starts laughing. He goes, look at it. And I look at it, and it's like glistening. Like it's sparkling. And I was like, why is it doing that? I was like, it doesn't look like that in the movies. And they said, we put Coke in it, dude. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, laced joint with cocaine, 14 years old.
Nice.
In the trailer park. I come to about 3 hours later from the panic attack I was having, shirtless, 6 miles from the house.
Oh, no.
Start strong, taper off.
Yes.
But my thing is like it's if it's like a religious thing, for example. I've never been religious, that ain't my thing. But like the one thing you have to think of is this is a leaf, right? Like if you believe in God, then you have to know that God put this here for your pleasure. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I guess you could say the same thing about cocaine, but I don't know if we want to get into that debate. I've never done really any illicit hard drug. Pain pills maybe whenever I've had surgeries or things like that. But even then, I come from a very addicted family. My father was an alcoholic, very responsible alcoholic, but an alcoholic nevertheless. My mother's had her issues with drugs, and my grandmother was a chain smoker. So it's like, I know that genetically I'll get hooked on something. I've never been hooked on weed. I feel like I like the feeling, but I can drop it and stop it for as long as I need to. You know, it's just not a thing. So that's another thing. If people are afraid of this idea that it's addictive, I guess it matters about personality, but for me, it never has been.
I always give him the old the walk hard Dewey Cox story argument where he's like, "What are you guys doing in here?" And he's like, "We're smoking reefer. You don't want no part of this. It's the cheapest drug there is." Like, stuff like this.
I gotta think that my story was that I was just kind of bitchy about it. Like, I spent so long preaching against marijuana, you know,
Right.
my friends. I used to say stupid stuff like, I used to say, well, why would I want to get high off that when I could get high off life? What a dumb thing to say. But that was my excuse. And so then I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, I told everybody I'd never smoke, so I'm just going to eat it, right? And I would do edibles for a while.
Yeah.
Well, edibles mess you up for a lot longer.
Oh, yeah.
And so finally I've gotten around now. I keep a little weed vape. I don't like to smoke the actual, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'll smoke it out of a vape. Every now and then we'll go out to a little dab bar and do something like that. But I don't know, just smoking a joint to me, it's harsh. It's tough on my lungs, so I don't do that. But
I used to.
it's great. So I don't know, to your listeners, this has been a small infomercial on weed. If you haven't tried it, go ahead and give it a shot.
Oh, I preach it to everyone. Like, my mother is like, she's gonna listen to this probably and be like, he's talking shit about me on the radio again. But like, she like, if I'm not mistaken, she tells the story differently. But I've heard the story this way several times. I believe she met my father like at a rehab-esque event. Like, they had both worked the program and whatnot. And my dad I think he just did it because the judge told him to. I went into court one time for a ticket, and the guy's looking I don't have my dad's last name, and he's just staring at me, and he was like, "You look familiar." So that's the kind of guy my dad is. I told him, I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Who's your father?" And I tell him, and my uncle and my dad have the same first legal name. They're both named William, and it's hilarious. And I said, "William Lomax is my dad," and he goes, "Which one?" And I was like, "Oh shit, he knows them both." And then I was like, "The older one." And he said, "Wow, that's unfortunate." And I said, "Yeah, I know." And then we went on. But they met at that, so he might have been doing it like out of that kind of thing. So like, I knew immediately as soon as I learned that, I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be a pothead." From a very early age, I was like, "This is gonna be a thing."
And you lived up to your own expectation.
When my mother sobered up and found God and whatnot, like she stopped everything, and she was just a panic-ridden mess. And I was like, "Mom, you need to go drive 2.5 hours up to Illinois." I was like, "This will do you all right. Don't get edibles." Because I had just greened out like a week before we had this conversation. So I was like, "Don't do that. I still have a harsh relationship with edibles right now." I was like, "Don't do that, but go get you like a little vape or something. Sit here, take 2 or 3 hits. You're going to be good." She says, "Cool, that's what I'm going to do." She does it. About, 2 hours after she gets home, I get a phone call at my apartment right across from her, like down the way a little bit. She calls me and she's like, "Hey, I need you to get here and help me with the ambulance." And I said, "Why is there an ambulance, Mama?" And she said, "I called the ambulance." I said, "Why did you call the ambulance, Mother?" And she said, "Because I'm having a heart attack and I'm dying." And I was like, "You are not having a heart attack. You are not dying." I said, "Please do not." I said, "Have you called them yet?" And she was like, "No, I'm about to dial them." And I was like, "Do not call them. I will be there in 5 minutes." I didn't even put shoes on. I jumped in my truck. I drove down the road in Owensboro. I did like 60 down Parish. It's 35. Did 60 down Parish to get to her apartment. As soon as I pull up, there's a damn ambulance. And so I tell him what happened. I was like, "Mama went to Illinois." And he was like, "Oh, okay, I see." And I was like, because they knew her. She'd called them so much because she's a panic-ridden mess. And I was like, "Yeah, Mama went to Illinois." I was like, "I told her to hit it twice and give it a little bit. I guess she didn't do that." And he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to let her go. She's fine." And then I go in the house and I'm sitting down and she was like, "I'm just so embarrassed. She goes, "I used to smoke a joint every day when you were a kid." And then I just started laughing. I said, "Mama, that's the 90s. That was when Mexicans was growing it behind their house." I was like, "It's a whole nother thing now." I was like, I showed her a Joe Rogan bit he did where he's like, the edibles were getting out of control. And he's like, "I went to go get a gummy bear and I asked him how strong they were and he made a face at me." And I was like, how much of this should I eat? And he's like, just the leg. And I'm like, the leg? I was like, that's how it is now.
Well, hey, listen. First of all, if I don't get this thought out, I'm gonna forget. But rehab is a hell of a place to meet the love of your life.
Oh no, they didn't even like each other, dude.
And the other thought is more like on the edible thing. Like, I prefer the high that an edible gives to me, but
Yes.
you oftentimes really don't know what you're in for, and you need to really carve out a portion of your day, maybe the entire thing, if you're going to take an edible. I remember I had a situation where it was still early into my weed eating days, and I had an edible. I was home alone. I have a couple of dogs, and I laid back on the couch, and the high kicks in, and to kind of describe the peaceful feeling you get, but also coupled with the paranoia, is I'm laid back on the couch and I really have to take a piss, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm looking around and I'm thinking, and my house is very, very small. Like, I mean, it would take me less than 20 steps to get to the bathroom. And I'm like, yeah, but, and I looked around the room and I surveyed the furniture and I was like, all of my tables have glass top tables, and I'm like, well, what if I stand up and fall through the plate glass tables? I'm going to cut myself. I'm going to bleed out high. They're going to find me, stoned. It's going to be whatever. And I'm like, so I can't do that. Well, what if it's a leather couch? I could just piss in the couch. And then when I'm not stoned, I could just dry it up and everything would be fine. And in my mind, I'm laying here. And, of course, this is probably all just a thought in an instant. But in my mind, I've been thinking about this for 2 hours. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm just going to pee right here on the couch. And I look up, and setting up at the end of the couch are my 2 dogs, and they are staring a hole right through me like they're telling me, we know what you're going to do, fat boy. Don't do it. Right? And so, needless to say, I got up and I stumbled to the bathroom and I accomplished it. But it's sort of, it's this love-hate relationship with the paranoia. I love it, but I hate it at the same time.
Yes, it's the paranoia and the what was it? Like literally just yesterday, it was my off day, and when it's my off day and the kid gets on the bus, Dad eats an edible and cleans the house. Like, that's what I do. I'm a good boyfriend. I clean for my girlfriend before she comes home because she's a Nazi. And she yells about everything if it's not clean and whatnot. Like, you have to be able to eat cereal out of the toilet or she's not happy. And it's, I hate it. And I love you. Anyway, I hate it. But she'll, like, I was...
Disgusting, by the way.
Oh, dude, it's... Yeah, it's...
The thought of eating cereal out of a toilet.
But it'll be so clean. Like...
Would it, though? She
literally walked in the other day and she goes, you need to do something with all that bullshit sitting next to you. It's 3 boxes of Pokemon cards. And she was like, it's a mess over there. And I was like, it's 3 boxes of Pokemon cards. They're not even mine.
Right.
I play Magic like an adult. And
No.
I eat this edible and like I eat a little too much of the edible. I eat it early in the day. So that way I've at least got time for like the kid to get home, and I'm not like, hi, I don't like how air's hitting my arm right now. Like I didn't want to have that, so I eat it, and then I just call them at work, and I was like, I'm ate too much edible, and I'm gonna die now. So how are you guys doing? I was like, I need to talk to somebody because if I don't, my heart is gonna explode out of my chest. Way too much. I mean, I did it. I ate too much edibles one time and literally ran away from home, like as an adult. A 31-year-old man I was then. Ran out the door.
That's vacation.
Oh,
That's
dude.
right. That's right.
Like the kids were in bed. Like my brother's in the living room. They all just ate shrooms and they're watching Adventure Time or something. And I was like, that's weird. And I remember that. I remember plateauing. My buddy made the edibles, and I kept talking shit to him. I was like, dude, these edibles don't touch me, dog. Like, look at me. I'm fat. I don't metabolize fast. Mm-hmm. I was like, this stuff just slow burns, and it doesn't hit at all sometimes. I was like, you got to make these stronger. So he did. And I ate my normal version of it, and I just kept going. There was no, like, plateau moment where I could just relax. And then I remember, like, being able to hear my heartbeat, and then my arms started tingling. So my thought was, I'm having a heart attack, take off running because I'll be fine. No, that's not how that works. So I did it. And then a couple hours later, my sister-in-law is driving up next to me at the gas station that is miles down the road. And she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like sweating. And that's about when I came to, and I was like, I just need to go get a Gatorade. And I walk in the gas station. Now I'm terrified because I am visibly messed up. And I'm like, oh my God, what if there's a cop? That's just a waste of weed. And I'm like, I go get my Gatorade and I put it on the counter and the guy scans it and I threw like a 20 at him or something and just grabbed the Gatorade and left. And as soon as I sipped that Gatorade, cool as a cucumber, my guy, I was great. And I was like, oh, I just needed something to drink. I literally had a 3-hour panic attack because I was thirsty. So no, you don't want to do this. Weed and wrestling also do not mix. Do not smoke weed and watch wrestling, because then you will sit there and be like, if you're like me, I go, why do I like this?
Yep.
I overanalyze it. I'm like, is this not the weirdest form of media that exists? While I'm stoned. Sober me, I'm like, oh, WrestleMania.
Well, look, I've got a different perspective on that. If you end up experiencing wrestling like I do, which is like, I kind of hate it now. I hate watching it on TV. It bores me to tears. That's the way that I can find it interesting now, is to be a little stoned. So if you ever get to a point where you're like, oh, I don't like this as much as I used to, just try it high again. It may work out for you. Do I still have you, by the way?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, you're good.
We're just
I
listening.
Just want to make sure. I'm making some moves here, so the listeners don't have to hear all the traffic running next to my truck. I'm making some moves here. Not buckled up either.
No, you're good, man.
But also in the case of like the marijuana and stuff, is like, it's not just like a bunch of good time, whatever, paranoia. There's also like, I find that I'm more in tune with my feelings. I sit on here, it was actually not long ago at all, probably a couple months ago. I was sitting on the couch with my dogs. And Ripley, my oldest dog, she's 5 years old this year. She actually comes up to me and she's a hugger. So she put her arms around me and was kind of doing the hugging thing. And once she sat down on my lap, she's just looking at me and I'm looking at her and I just start crying. And I start telling her how much I love her and how much I appreciate her and things like that. And it ended up being a situation. It sounds ridiculous just saying it, but if you've ever had one of these moments with your dogs or maybe your kids or your significant other, it almost kind of transcends life in a way. It makes you feel like everything's okay. So I don't know. I advocate for it. I think that what we need, I think that either you all are in Owensboro, right?
Hardinsburg.
Okay, well, either way, even if it's the next biggest town that you can find, I think we need a public place that people can go and smoke weed, hang out, and laugh, and just shit talk. I really do.
Yeah, that would be lovely. I've pitched it here because, like, Hardinsburg is a very, very small town. Like, I don't know any of these people because I am from Owensboro. That's where all my peeps are. And I'll come here. I work in this grocery store here. And, like, I'll just be at Walmart and someone will walk in and be like, hey, what's up, Casey? I've never seen this person before in my life.
Happens all the time.
And I'll be like, hey. And then they'll ask me how my father-in-law's doing. And I'm like, he's, just doing his thing. I don't know you. Quit talking to me because I don't like people. I'm like, quit talking to me. I don't know you. And then you know my name, which is creepy. And then I'll go home and tell my girlfriend, who is from here, and she'll be like, honey, there's less than 2,000 people here. People are probably going to know who you are. And I was like, how do you think it would do here for, like, pot? And she just started laughing. And I was like, what's so funny? She was like, we're a moist county. You understand? Like, we don't sell beer on Sundays. And I was like, fair point. She goes, we can't get a bar to be successful here. Do you really think you set up like a hookah bar where there is weed somewhere? She was like, that's not going to work. She goes, somebody's going to get mad and burn your building down like it's Mississippi burning. She was like, this is going to be, like, rough for you. It wouldn't work here. I always said if I did something pot-wise, I would have to do it in Owensboro because that's what I call where the civilized people are. But that's not what they are either down there. They're not civilized even a tiny bit.
It's what is it? The Bible thumpers mess everything up for everybody. It's crazy to me.
It's that here, but even more so, which was surprising to me, it comes down to old people. It's old money that runs this town. And if we pitch like something new to come here, that no, it's new. Like I think somebody pitched Chick-fil-A here, and they were like, "No, we don't need Chick-fil-A." That's the only thing you can't get here is chicken. Like we're the only our store is the only place in town you can get pre-cooked fried chicken, and people like that. And no, they're like, "No, it's new. We don't want it. We'll let the Chick-fil-A food truck set up at the hospital though. Like they'll do that. Food trucks have more success here because they just won't allow new brick and mortar, which is insane to me. I was pitching to Leon the other day. I was like, what if a wrestling event was posted here outside of the state fair?
We would love that, by the way.
I was like, what if we could do that here? And then I was like, well, who knows? They'll probably say no because it's violent.
But they let it happen at the fair, though.
That state fair wrestling match. You talk about mud show.
It was awful.
Oh my God!
And not to talk down about Tony Evans because he's great, but I heard he was there.
He was,
and
on
he was
that
part
card.
of that show.
He was the best thing on that card.
But
I'll talk hell about it. Look, here's the thing: is like I always say, you're only as good as the worst place you work.
That's true.
Oh,
so. Who is this company?
No idea.
Oh, I don't remember what their name is. The way my girlfriend explained it, because I had to work and she took my kids. They were with me for the weekend and something happened. Like I had to work. She takes them to the state fair or like the county fair here to watch them. And she sends me a picture and she goes, every match is a steel cage match. And I was like, I said, what?
The wrestlers were the crew. Like, they were the ring crew.
It's always that.
Yeah.
But she said, these guys, she goes, this is like meth championship wrestling. And I was like, bad. What? And she sends me a picture of like the referee, not a tooth to be had in that ref's mouth. Like, not a tooth to be had. And then she said, and then the most out of place thing I've ever seen. And she knows Tony because he's from around here. So she knows him kind of, sort of. And she goes, the most out of place thing, but he's from here, so everyone loves it. And just sends me a picture of like a jacked, like a big, kind of a star-looking wrestler next to a dude who's literally wrestling in a Leonard Skinner shirt.
Yep.
Like that's what he's wearing, a Leonard Skinner shirt and really bad cut-off jorts.
Oh my!
And he was their champion.
My goodness, I think I know who set that match up. Bobby Wilson booked that show.
Bobby Wilson booked that show.
You bet. You watch and see.
That's probably a good match. Do you know the reason why shows do every match in a cage?
I'm imagining that was because they didn't want to take the cage down, but I'm super interested in the actual answer.
No, that's exactly right. It's a matter of who are you getting to take the cage down.
Yeah.
It takes an army. It also takes some time. 9 times out of 10, if we do a cage match in the WWA, we try to have it as the opening match. That way the cage is at least already set up. It doesn't take time to take it down. But the unfortunate part about that is cage matches are oftentimes your blow-off matches, your big matches. You want them as the main event. They're the ones that draw people to the card.
Yeah.
Well, then you have to have a main event that people are going to stick around for. So it's a little tricky. I've never been one. I've never thought, because it's even been proposed to me in the past, but like just do them all in the cage. That's absolutely ridiculous, is to do all your matches on the card in a cage. It's ridiculous.
That having a full gimmick show, which speaking of ridiculous, I'm going to use that word to segue into it. You and I are both like a big fan of like the rant. I enjoy getting something I'm passionate about and letting people know about it. And from a promoter standpoint, I want to talk to you about this because I have heard as much from a wrestler standpoint as I can stomach. From a promoter standpoint, have you been following like the Raja Jackson Psycho Stu thing? I imagine it's everywhere. You've seen it, but have you been like following it?
Yeah, it's hard to miss it. Now, if you say following it, I've seen the videos. Like I saw the video of the actual tag. I saw the backstage video where they're talking over some spots. He gets hit with the beer can. I heard about the apology, and then I saw the video of the other guy, the other wrestler, telling him to give him a receipt. As far as if anything else has been released since then, I don't know that I've seen that. So yeah, I'm trying to stay up to date with it. I have formulated an opinion, but I'm curious as to know where this is going.
Well, see I'm just thinking about like all as far as like the events that have happened since then is like we've one of the guys, I guess the guy who pulled Raja off of him, the guy with like the weird like the Lance Archer mohawk thing going on. He went on a podcast that literally every episode had less than 1,000 views, 2,000 views, to having 500,000 views in a single day just from this guy stepping on the show.
Yeah.
And he's telling the story of what happened, and he calls out the guy in the cowboy hat in the video saying, give him a receipt. Well, that guy had beef with Psycho Stu, is what I'm finding out. And he was like, yeah. And he told him another piece of the live gets released, and he goes, and if they go in there to try to stop you, I got your back, dude. That guy has now been fired from both Knox Pro, his day job, and may possibly receive a criminal charge.
Wow.
You know what? Good for all those. I think the first time that I heard anything about that guy, so right now specifically, just for clarification, we're talking about the guy that told Raja Jackson to get a receipt.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know. I've never seen any of these guys. I've booked Rikishi. I know what Knox Pro is. I'm familiar with it. The one thing that is glaringly obvious to me that I wasn't, I didn't realize, I thought of Knox Pro as a pretty, legit company. And then when I'm seeing the footage of this, I'm sort of like, wait a minute, this just looks like a mud show too. I don't know. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. In our business, you should be able to go to the ring with somebody who you don't see eye to eye with, someone who maybe you even hate, but that all goes away when you're doing business. I mean, it's just the way that I was always brought up. I know it sounds kind of silly, but no, it's just the truth. You're going to have to work with people you don't know, people you don't trust. And so there's this bond that wrestlers have where I'm going to give you my body and you're going to protect it. And then I'm going to do the same for you at all costs. So the idea that another wrestler, I mean, it's a completely different topic talking about Raja and this and that. But the idea that a wrestler would tell this MMA fighter who don't really know how the industry works to get a receipt, it's pretty foul. And I think if I had just read the article and the article said Knox Pro fired him, I'd be like, oh, whoop-de-doo. Okay, so he lost his $20 bill or he lost his Hulk Hogan handshake. Who cares? But the fact that his employer, his legit employer, Shoot Job, decided to fire him too, hats off to them. Good job, because this guy, I'm not saying that this guy's a terrible person. I don't know him. But I am saying that people have to be held accountable for stupid stuff, and should be. So
yeah. So and that's where from a promoter standpoint, how did I can't even begin to step into the mind. Apparently, the person who was booking the show, his name is Black Pearl. That's his wrestling name. He's the son of either Alpha or Sika. Not whichever one's not Roman Reigns' dad. Sika's his dad. I
think Alpha's his dad, ain't it?
So he's one of Sika's sons.
Right.
And
he's Roman's cousin.
Yeah, Rikishi not even in the building. That's what makes it worse. So I just don't understand where the mindset comes in, because I don't know what I was trying to ask originally. More like what's your input, I guess, is the opinion from that's what it is. It's your opinion from a promoter standpoint, because from a wrestler standpoint, I think I've heard about all I think I can handle with how many just shit takes there have been. It's pretty bad when JBL is the one who makes it make sense. Mm-hmm. JBL is the only person I've heard talk about this that had anything smart to say, other than a piece of what Mark Henry said. JBL said, Stu never should have assumed that kid worked. Yep. He just saw a kid backstage with a camera. The most Stu should have done is stand up and be like, hey, are you a wrestler? Introduced himself. That's what he should have done. He said if Raja would have socked him right then, right there, when he smashed the gimmicked can on his head, because it was a gimmicked can. Mm-hmm. It's part of Stu's thing he does. And he's like, if he would have hit him right then, right there, the boys could have stepped in, broke it up. The promoter would have stepped in and said, hey, go solve this problem and call it a day. That's fine. He said, but then for the next 2 hours, you have video proof of him premeditating an attempted murder.
My whole thing is, I do a little segment on my podcast called Promoter's Perspective. So I will deliver you my promoter's perspective.
Little crossover.
Just my take. So an apology was issued by this guy to this other guy, right? I mean,
yeah.
So that's where everything after the apology becomes a completely different circumstance.
Right.
Had that apology not happened, then that's all it is. This guy's going to get his revenge on this guy for hitting him with a beer can. And by the way, it was clear to me that it was a gimmick beer can because, guys, a beer can don't bust open that easy.
Right. No, at all.
It's just, he barely hit him. I mean, I think the guy was more offended by getting wet with whatever it was in there. Maybe it was actual beer, but I think he was more offended by getting wet than he was actually being hit. But either way, all of that is one thing. When that apology happens, you all are clear. Now, everything after the apology becomes an entirely different situation. So, there's a lot to this. There's a lot to unpack. I don't like when people really they think of it as just one way or another. This is just this guy's fault or just this guy's fault. Everything up until the apology is on the wrestler and on the promoter.
Right.
It's on the wrestler and on the promoter because they should know better than to just treat anybody this way. You know, I'd like to think, like, there are some people that are getting on the internet saying, well, he's not involved in the business, he shouldn't be in this spot. Well, that's kind of horseshit, to be honest with you.
Right.
Because we do it all the time. WWE does it all the time. We saw Travis Scott slap the hell out of Cody Rhodes. Like, these people are involved in this. Like, I think Evansville, I just saw an ad on HCW's page where they're bringing in a couple of people from the 1,000 Pound Sisters. I love that. I've tried to do that, so I'm not going to, create an issue with that. But if they're going to be involved in a spot, there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't mean people outside the business saying that people that are also outside of the business should not be involved in spots. No, that's ridiculous. But there should have been a better understanding between the wrestler, the promoter, and Raja himself. But again, that's all before the apology. After the apology happens, now you're either going to do business or you're not. And so after the apology, then we got the guy talking about a receipt, and then we got this and that and the other. It all boils down to this. I don't care what the backstory is. I don't care what happened. The guy knocked him. I mean, he was unconscious on the bump. On the double leg. From that point, every strike after he knocked him out should be attempted murder. Every single one of them. Because I don't know either one of these guys, and I don't have, but like, they were hard to watch. I mean, it was pretty sickening. If you put that in an MMA ring, people would still hate on this. So I don't like the fact that people are also targeting wrestling and, it's fake. And at the end of the day, I don't care where this would have happened. If it happened out on the street, the moment that he threw a punch after the guy was unconscious, people would hold him liable, and he should be held liable.
That's something I was fussing about. Like, I was explaining it to my girlfriend. She's a newer wrestling fan. She's starting to get into it a little bit more and more as we go. First time she went to one of the WWA shows, she was like, yeah, I'll go. Second time, it was like, I cannot wait to go. So she's stepping it up here. She's getting, into it.
That.
And yeah, dude, it was so fun.
It was great.
I got a funny one about that in a minute that'll really make you laugh. But like, we were I was trying to explain to her like the significance of what happened. I was like, people are calling this like the worst in-ring faux pas since like mass transit. And then she was like, what is mass transit? So I had to explain the mass transit story to her. She almost puked me just explaining that story to her. I said, this is all over something called a receipt. And then she's like, what does that mean? And I was like, okay, I'm going to show you what I think receipt means. And then I'm going to show you what people in this mindset think receipt is, so you understand why people are saying this is bad. And I just told her, like, I was in a ring training. We were just, working on how to throw better strikes. Somebody tagged me for real. Okay, so while we were running later, and then it was like, hey, hit clotheslines and just like practice bumping. I laid that clothesline in just a little bit, not enough to take his head off. I made sure I just hit him in his chest and just knocked him down. He got up. He was like, fair enough. But I like to be hit for real. So did he. So it was fine. I just was not ready to be hit in the corner of my eye off of what was supposed to be no contact punching. That was the point, is to punch without touching, but make it look real. That was the point. Mm-hmm. And he tagged me for real. I said, that's a receipt. And then I showed her New Jack throwing Vic Grimes off the scaffolding. I said, that's what this guy convinced him to do receipt-wise. And she was like, that's attempted murder. I said, right. A receipt is you hit me a little hard, so I'm going to wrench the headlock a little bit harder. Not you hit me a little hard or you embarrassed me, so now I'm going to cripple and maim you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you know what you're talking about. I was ready. I was ready to interject and tell you were wrong, but you know what you're talking about. Because in wrestling today, there's just general idea that a receipt just kind of means revenge.
Yes.
And that's not what that means. In wrestling, you are communicating with your bodies, not with your words.
Right.
And so, it is the case. If somebody gives you what we call if somebody potatoes you,
Right.
They might be doing so without knowing it. So there's a couple of, and I was brought up by Shelby Adcock, an old school wrestling promoter.
Oh, yeah,
and I
for
learned
sure.
a lot of this through him. But first of all, wrestling is about trust, not about revenge. If you already have somebody who is so consumed with getting theirs, then that's already somebody that should not be in the business. There's also a misconception that says, if you tater me, I'll tater you back. That's also wrong.
Yeah.
What it is, I've been hit so hard in the ring and let it go and never given a, quote, receipt because it was just a mistake. The only time you give a receipt is to let your opponent know you're being too hard, lighten up a little bit, and the only time you want to do that is if it keeps on over and over and over. So, like, if I'm in the ring with somebody, like, let's say it's somebody I've never worked before, I might let them potato me 3-4 times, and it depends on how hard they're potatoing me, but I might let them get a few in before I have to potato them back, give them that receipt. And that receipt is usually not at 100%. It's usually even less than what they gave me, but just enough to tell them with my body to say, hey, ease up on me a little bit. That's what a receipt is. So the fact that this is even being called a receipt, BS, complete BS. It's an assault. It's attempted murder, is what it is.
It embarrassed me. Like I haven't stepped inside of a ring outside of taking pictures in the WWA for over a decade, probably. And like I'm completely out of it. I don't even consider myself that anymore. I that's something I did for a couple Saturdays is how I put it. It just wasn't for me. The in-ring stuff hurt, and I was embarrassed to have been associated at the moment because of how I was like, oh my God, this makes all of us look bad. Everyone who likes this, everyone who does this. And it's not the case at all. This is a very isolated incident, but because it involves a high-profile person's kid, the worst nepo baby ever. Because it involves a very and that's the thing is it messes with Rampage's. His shit. I've done lost the word.
He's already getting heat over not turning Raja
it's
in.
ruined his reputation because this is his son.
What do people expect? It's his kid. What do they expect? Joe Biden pardon Hunter and come on, I would too. You know he's got to defend him.
They were tearing him up. They're like, Rampage, you've got to turn him in. This ain't right. You got to do something. He's like, look, I don't condone it. Yeah. But at the same time, he's an adult. And he wasn't in the right state. He had a concussion. He shouldn't have ever been in there in the first place.
Yeah, and see, my mother, for example, right? Her thing about, me and my brother, she would fuss at us all the time, even as adults. Yep. She still kind of does. Not so much me, because I have my shit together somewhat. But she used to be like, I wish you wouldn't do things. We worked together, and I yelled at our boss. I called our boss all kinds of names, told him I'd take him out in the parking lot and monkey stomp him if he wanted to talk anymore. But it was a thing. She was embarrassed. And she said, what you do reflects upon me. And I was 20-something. And I was like, Mama, I'm a 25-year-old man or 26-year-old man. If anyone looks at me and then turns around and looks at you and says, you went wrong here, they don't understand what personal growth and becoming your own person means. I said, everyone can look at us and tell we're different. I'm covered in tattoos. You have none. I cuss and drink and raise hell. You don't really do much of that stuff. You're a hard worker. I'm lazy as shit when I don't want to do something. I was like, everyone can tell that we're different people. So the fact that anybody's being like, Rampage, this is your fault. Okay, maybe he should have hugged him a couple different, but what was that honestly gonna do? He's a hothead. Hotheads are hotheads are hotheads, man. That's the way it is. That, yes, you can change, you can better yourself. I had a temper. I've toned it down, kind of.
A little bit.
A little. Shut up, man. A little. You don't know me, dog. Like, I've kind of toned it down, but it's ridiculous. And like, also, we had to interview MK. Like, we got the chance to interview MK, and I was listening to something, and that's what made me want to talk to you about it, is because MK tells a story on Ray's podcast. We didn't bring it up on ours because they pretty much said everything could be said with Ray and Dakota and all them. That he had a problem during his training, and he was like ready to throw hands, and he stood up and let everybody know how he felt, and your response to it was to pull him and say, I got you, but time and place, and then you put them in a room, you talked, you walked away, you let them talk the problem out. I don't understand why that's not uniform, why that's just not what we do, because we're adults at the end of the day.
Because not everybody gets it. Like, I don't know, and it's a personality thing. Some people can communicate their issues, some people cannot. And then oftentimes, I don't know about in this situation, but certainly in the MK situation, you do reach a point to where you're either going to communicate in a very maybe violence not the word, but definitely a very strong way, because it's already reached that point, or the communication is over and you're going to fight. I don't know. I haven't heard that podcast, and maybe MK Swift was to a point where he was ready to throw hands. I didn't gather that. I didn't gather the fact that he was ready to fight. But what I did gather was that what it was being said, which I don't know if they were calling him gay or something like that.
Right.
But I did gather that he was upset enough that he was so emotionally charged that he was ready to uproot training. He was ready to completely interject and yell and scream, and that's what he was doing. And I was so proud of him in that moment because of the subject matter. It would be completely different if it were a situation where somebody had tatered him in the ring and he went and threw a fit in the locker room. But, there were a couple immature kids making some homophobic comments, and MK Swift had enough and stood up for himself. But it was a teachable moment, one where I told him, you did the right thing, good on you, I'm proud of you, because, hey, he was coming out to me too in that moment. But also a moment where I said, but this is not how we do things. Good on you for standing up for yourself, but this is not the way to do it. And that's a good comparison. What I hate about the whole Raja Jackson attack is that I think people do look at independent wrestling a certain way. I think that, especially online, social media, people have comments to make. We see them here and there on WWA posts, but I would argue that the Raja Jackson situation, despite how many eyes have been on this, because everybody's talking about it, regardless of how many eyes are currently on this, it doesn't do the same amount of damage to independent wrestling that these mud shows do. And I'll tell you why. I think that, like, if somebody sees this Raja Jackson attack and thinks that that's all independent wrestling, that person has to be a very stupid person, because clearly this stuff is not hitting the news every day. But I think it's very fair for a non-wrestling fan or a casual wrestling fan to look at a promotion like, let's say, NAWE out of Madisonville, and to think that those people are representative of what independent wrestling is. Why? Because there are more companies like NAWE and these mud shows with these pot-belly T-shirt wrestlers.
Yes, dude.
Who put no effort whatsoever into their production. They're hate mongers. Just no effort whatsoever. There are so many of those in the industry that I believe that that's generally what people think of indie wrestling as being. So, yeah, I do hate that the Raja Jackson thing makes it out like this is what indie wrestling is, but I think that's only a small percentage. Meanwhile, what we need to be doing is targeting these indie companies who are making the rest of us look bad.
1,000%, because there are so many of them. Like, I mean, just And it's always the same story. It's some scumbag guy who watched wrestling a lot in the 90s, maybe got a couple XPW videotapes or something and fancied himself a promoter. I like hot chicks and dick jokes. I can be a wrestling promoter. And I think that's now, luckily, just because of like the podcast especially, I've been able to rub elbows and meet a lot of different people from a lot of different areas in the indie wrestling scene. And I'm starting to find that one common theme is happening, and that is everybody's pushing back against this like skeezy, like, you know, that the whole wrestling promoter that tries to run out before it's time to pay everyone. Like that is still very much alive. Don't ever get it twisted. Anybody who thinks it might be dead, it's very much alive, but it is starting to wind down. Just in my experience of who I'm talking to. So that makes me really happy. I've met a couple different promoters who just, you know, they're like, hey, I want to put on a good show. I want to entertain the fans. I want to make sure some guys got some positive stuff to do with themselves on a Saturday or on a Friday, whatever it's going to be for them. And like that's starting to become more the thing. And that now that, you know, everyone's realizing that wrestling, I forget how they said it, Dusty Rhodes or somebody used to say like wrestling was for the common man. And like people mistake that as saying it's for stupid people. That's what they started twisting it as. And Cody was talking about it on one of his podcasts the other day. He was like, it's for the everyman, not the common man.
I believe that. I think it probably stemmed from far before Dusty ever walked the earth.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that like it's a situation where first of all, take it from a promoter, or actually maybe don't take it from a promoter because it's actually going to be me defending promoters. I think that oftentimes promoters catch a lot of the flack, a lot of the residual criticism for bad shows, which at the end of the day, yeah, the promoter is the one that's going to decide what's on the show. But I think I think the blame has to be laid with a bunch of people. I've heard a lot. Here, let me give you an example that doesn't really have to do with anything negative.
Yeah.
We have people time to time say, we wish you had more women's matches on the shows. And while I understand that, people don't understand that the women wrestlers, because there's so few good women wrestlers out there, they are so much more expensive.
Right.
So then what you have to do is, as the promoter, you have to determine, okay, do I want to pay this lady, who, by the way, nobody knows. I have this rule of thumb, like when I do shows, like if we're bringing people in, right, and we're going to pay these people to come in, am I going to pay them, or are they charging enough that they're going to put that many asses in seats? So, like, let's say somebody says, I want $400, and let's say that our tickets are $10 a piece. Well, that person has to at least bring us 40 people to that venue that would have not originally came to that show in order for me to figure they're going to be worth that investment. Well, women's wrestlers at this point in time, their starting price, if you take a female wrestler right now in the area who doesn't have any big name recognition, they're probably going to start you at a price of $150.
Right.
Now, at that fee alone, and I'm not naming any names because we don't talk pay in the business. We're pretty tight on that.
Right.
But with that alone, if I put a women's match on the show, it's just singles match, I'm out $300. Well, I don't need to get into the financials of the wrestling industry to tell you all that that's very poor business. But the flip side of that is some of these promoters, they don't make enough money to pay their workers the amount that they're asking. So what they do is they get a cheaper worker.
Yep.
And when they get a cheaper worker, you get that cheaper quality product. So I don't want to just put it on the promoter. It's the industry as a whole.
Right.
It's people overcharging promoters. It's wrestlers who are coming out of the gate pitching prices and not thinking, okay, what does this company look like they can pay me, number one. Number two, what do they look like they're going to draw? Because they also are going to have to draw enough to facilitate what I'm charging.
Right.
So there's a lot more that goes into it than that. So when I hate on a mud show, so to speak, I'm not just hating on the talent they book. I'm hating on the effort that they're putting forth. Early on, I knew that the WWA was going to be a company that if we could avoid paying these absorbent amount of monies to the talent and instead, again, facilitate a different way that they can make their money, then you can take that money and you could put it back into production. And if you put it back into production, more people are going to turn out to the shows, and the more people that turn out to the shows, the more money the talent's going to make on the merch or whatever else. It's a perfect recipe that I think if more promoters did, more companies would actually be brought up to a higher level. The problem is the talent will not allow that, because then there's no guarantee. And that's what, at the end of the day, everybody's looking for in this industry is some sort of guarantee. So it's not just the promoters, it's the talent. A lot of times it's the sponsors who won't put out the money we've got fairs. Here's a good example. We've got fairs right now who people ask these fair boards and things, they ask them for wrestling shows. And what do they want to do? These fair boards go to the bottom of the bucket. Some of these companies won't even charge them to come into the fairs, and the ones that do, we'll come in for $500 or whatever. And these fair boards want that, as opposed to giving more money to a better company. And so there's a lot going into this. I mean, if we're talking about why these mud shows exist, there is a lot going into it. And another big thing, and then I'll leave it alone, I'll let you have it back, is that sometimes we have to acknowledge here that our industry is full of people who should not be in the industry. They should be buying a ticket. And who am I? Who is anyone to tell these people not to follow their dreams? But these are the people that are not interested in sinking money into good wrestling gear. These are people not interested in hitting a gym. These are not people interested in learning about how to be a public figure. They're too busy being okay with being homophobic and racist and everything else on social media. So these people don't want to put in the effort. Or even if you take them out and you just talk about the ones who are just not able, because hate to break it to everybody, not everybody can be a wrestler. But these people are going to find a way to wrestle one way or another. And they're going to go and they're going to work for these promoters who are okay with them working on the show for nothing. So it's just like the whole thing is a bad recipe. That's the reason why these mud shows exist.
Oh yeah. Like one guy I know out of Michigan, he runs his promotion. He was a wrestler. I think he just retired due to like a weird injury, but we've known each other for years. We were talking about this one day, just having a conversation about, he made a post where it was like during tax time. It was like middle of February, and he had made a post that said, hey guys, it's almost tax time. That means go ahead and suck up them bookings now while some of these startups still exist. So I messaged him and I was like, what does that mean? And he was like, the most amount of indie promotions start up, in quotations, right around the time the IRS starts giving refunds.
No, that's for a shoot. As a matter of fact, I don't care to call a lot of names. They're in Owensboro, UCW, Universal Championship Wrestling,
Yes.
the Maddox brothers. Those are tax time promoters.
Yes, they are.
Those are tax time promoters where they're going to pop in and they're going to promote their show as the biggest thing you've ever seen, and they're going to book some big names you want to see.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, they're only there to rape the audience of their money. They're not there to give you any solid product for any sort of amount of time. But I mean, at that point in time, it's like, what do you... I guess it's a matter of expectation. I expect that a promoter cares more about providing me quality entertainment than I do just taking my money. But some people aren't worried about it. Some people's like, yeah, but I get a chance to meet badass Billy Gunn. I'm going, you know? And if that's what you want, then cool, do your thing. But yeah, tax time promoters are a thing. What I choose to do, especially around tax time, I don't know if this is off topic, but like...
I'll go for it.
We're not going to not run shows the rest of the year. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to take that tax time money and we're going to try to put more asses in the seats. So like what you do is you have promoters who are working their shoot job, and they'll take their tax time money and they'll fund a show. That's what I don't like. I'm like, oh, come on, find a different way to do it. Have a little dignity.
Yeah, right.
However, if you can take your tax time money and put it into a show so that you know that more people are going to see your show because they too have gotten their tax return money, by all means do that. By all means do that. As a matter of fact, we're planning a show at the Sports Center on April 25th. I think actually you all might have the scoop there because I don't think I've announced that yet.
Wow, look at that. A first scoop. All right.
We're choosing that date intentionally because more people are going to have more money to spend. But we're not doing that as some sort of way of being like, let's rake in more money. I'm doing that so it's easier on people to actually come out to that show and see that show. I
Right.
want people to be able to. And with President Pig shit and his tariffs and everything like that, my whole thing is we're going to have to do everything we can at this point to serve our audience and to make things easier on them, because everybody's feeling the bite of this inflation.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Tax time promoters are not good. Tax time wrestling is.
Yeah, I mean, and especially, like, I used to use that same method working in restaurants. If I worked for something that didn't have a corporate banner and we got, like, a little bit of freedom, I would start to talk to my staff because I am too good to just be one of them. I have to be over all of them. I will flex how good I am in this industry, but, like, that's why I got out of it, the ego. And so, like, I would tell everybody, like, hey, guys, it's March 19th. Taxes for people who have to wait on things are starting to get them now. That means we're going to run this special. Now, we ran this special 2 months ago, but the difference is going to be this special is going to be a larger portion. We're going to charge $5 less for that portion. And then everybody's like, what do you mean? How are we going to break even? Because more people are going to come in and buy this. And I got this product for dirt cheap. It was usually like a veal cutlet. I'm like, I got this dirt cheap. Dude, this is not even that good of a quality of a cut. I said, I got it dirt cheap. So I can serve more of it and charge less. And wouldn't you know, I couldn't even do it 2 nights in a row because I ran out of the first night. Everybody ran in to get it. If you plan things around when people have money, it's almost magical that you make money and can continue doing your things. That's what I don't understand, like with the tax time promoters. Okay, so you got a big tax return. You got like 13 grand, whatever. Just shoot a number off my head. Your idea is to buy a wrestling ring because they already don't have the ring. That's they don't have the ring. So you're going to buy a ring. That's going to cost you around $5 grand, $6 grand, and you might get a good one. Then you're going to have to, book workers. Well, then you got to pay for a venue. Most venues ain't going to let you do it for free. That'd be the greatest. Everyone would run an indie promotion if venues were free. Well, see, then you got to figure out how to advertise, and then you got to put money, and then 10 people show up to your show. Well, because nobody knows who you are, first of all. I am very particular when I go to a thing. Like, if I go to an event of any kind, I need to know shit about it. I won't go if I don't know nothing. I need to know something, be familiar in some way. If I'm like that, 1,000 of the people out there are just the same way. That's my logic. So these guys go out here, no name, no nothing. They booked Hurricane to show up at the show. That's what it is. We got Shane Hurricane Helms. That's my boy, though. Not shitting on Hurricane.
That is your boy.
That's my boy. But hey, we booked, this guy who used to be in TNA, come out and see him. That's also cool. Great, do that. But when that is your entire show, and everybody else on your show is wrestling in cutoff jeans and, like you said, the Potbelly T-shirt, so many of those.
There's a lot.
So many of them out there.
There are several.
Like, I just don't understand it. I never will understand where the mentality comes from. But I'm so glad you said that was going to be April 25th. My birthday is like 2 weeks before that. Now I figured out what I'm doing.
We'll be at that show.
I figured out what I'm doing for my birthday now. Because I don't celebrate it. I celebrate it with wrestling. That's what.
I think with that Sports Center show we did, the idea is you book names not for the sake of making money. And I know for any business person listening, they're like, "What? You say that out loud?" No, because my love is for the business. My love is for our company, our brand, and the people in it. So you book names for 2 big reasons. Number one is to put more asses in the seats, not for the financial gain, but so that my friends, my peers can perform in front of a larger crowd.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, there's a good actually, you can flip-flop. Maybe this is number one. But either way, equally as important is that the goal is to sell them. And I think you all said you were at that Sports Center show, yeah?
No, we did not get to.
We were going to go, and we ended up having to work.
It's been a fun podcast. I appreciate it, guys. Well, that Sports Center show, the important part about that wasn't just getting our guys in front of that crowd, but that Sports Center show, for anybody that was already familiar with the WWA, they would know that we focused so heavily on our own storylines on that show. I mean, the main event didn't feature any of these outside talents. It featured Alexander Knight winning the big one in the big battle royal at the end. The goal is get them to the seats with the star power, but sell them to the next show based on your own storylines, based on your own work ethic.
Yeah.
We actually ran the city of Owensboro the very next week. So Saturday we were at the Sports Center. 7 days later we were at the Salvation Army, and we had cards printed out. And on those cards I think it was MK Swift and Clay Williams or somebody. I don't remember exactly who it was in a ladder match. So we were pushing it hard in order for people to be sold on what we. So I mean, you make a really good point. I need people impressed with not just the names, but with our stuff too, so that way they come back. That's how you do good business.
Yeah. You mentioned a name there, and I have to take a chance to put something over because you mentioned both names. So the story I had to tell you about the last show, which was where were we at?
We were in Litchfield the last show.
We were in Litchfield, yeah. Dude, I've lost all these L's at Litchfield, Livermore. I get kind of mixed up where we were when. So we go to Litchfield.
You got two, bro. You got confused on two?
Dude, I smoke so much pot, my brain is pickled at this point. Like, it's insane. I sat down the other day and I was like, I smoke a lot of reefer. Like, this is crazy. I understand why everybody tells me slow down. Like, I figured it out. So we're at Litchfield. I take the old lady with me. She's actually excited this time because we went to Bowling Green and she got to enjoy herself a little bit. The baby was kind of messed up. So no baby this time. We go. Danny Beasley gets us into our second row tickets that we just, he's like, he messaged us immediately. First row sold out. Y'all want second? We get them. Mm-hmm. And we're sitting there and it comes time to take the picture and get in the ring. And I'm like, come on, baby, get in the ring with me. You're going to love it. You're going to love taking the picture. And she was like, I don't want it. What if somebody sees me fall? And then, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, come on, honey, you're going to love it. I was like, it's $6 for us, both of us to go take a picture and make memories together.
That's right.
Come on. You're going to want this when I'm dead.
That's right.
I was like, you're going to want to look at this. And she goes, I guess we'll do it. She said, who's in the ring? I said, Munchie and MK Swift. And then she stood up and just took off.
She said, let's go.
She said, let's go. And I was like, what is going on right now? So I'm like, okay, she's taking a liking to one of the two of them. Knows both. She loves them both. But at the end of the show, she's like, this is a really good show. Yeah. She saw Alexander Knight. She didn't get to see him last time that much. She got to see him. She's like, he's really good at this. He's really good at this.
He's great.
And then he wins. He beats Game Time. And then that big feller come out. And
we'll get to him in a second.
She sat down the whole show. She never stood on her feet. When Clay Williams' music hit, she hit her feet.
Yes,
so
she did. She jumped.
I've never seen her stand up so fast. She sees what's
going on.
Oh yeah. She was like, "What is the deal?" And then she asked me when Clay come out. She goes, "What belt is that? Why is he worried about getting a belt when he's got a belt?" And I was like, "Honey, it's like the Money in the Bank." I said Money in the Bank briefcase. And she goes, oh, but it's a title belt. And I said, right, it's something that makes sense in wrestling, not a stupid briefcase. And she's like, yes. And I was like, okay. So we go on about our day, and she sees it, and she goes, oh, my God. And she's bright-eyed, and she's like, got her hands on her face, and she's like, is he about to take his belt from him? She said, what's the big guy doing in there? And then he wins. That's all she talked about.
We're not going to talk about my face after that happened.
This dude, he's so sour with Clay Williams after the podcast that he walked out like a 2-year-old with a skint knee. It was hilarious. You got so much heat with Leon that night.
I have made it my solitary mission that if I complete training, I am facing Clay Williams 100%.
You are
100%.
I can't.
Oh, it's bound to happen.
Exactly. See, thank you.
He's so sad. He went to go fist bump Clay at one of the shows, and Clay's doing Clay, and he goes to like fist bump Leon back, and then like gives him like a
whoa. First of all, Clay saw me when he first stepped through the curtain, and we locked eyes, like just dead set, and he stared at me the entire way up the entranceway, got an inch away from my fist, and then just dogged me out. And so I have sworn that since then I have beef with 2 people. One, Tyler Santos because he bullies me, and 2, Clay Williams for punking me out of that fist bump.
Santos picked on him. Do you understand what happened here?
I got bullied by a dude that gets bullied.
Oh, you said, yeah, Santos guy and was getting him good. And I was laughing, and we saw Jen, and we were like, how'd you like Santos' episode? And she goes, he needs to learn how to talk. I just started dying.
He's great, though. He's so good.
I love that kid to death. But anyway, so the point of it was We have to drive 35 minutes to get back to Hardinsburg. For 35 minutes, she just started asking me about the shows, and then she just kept coming back. She was like, that guy at the end. The guy at the end. I was like, which one? The big guy, the guy missing the tooth, or the guy who was the champion? She goes, the guy who was the champion. And I was like, yeah, all she did was put over Alexander Knight for like 35 minutes.
He was great, man.
That dude is awesome. Like, that was such a good, like, everything he did there was, like, spot on. I'm going to reach out to him, like, cold text him to do this so I can talk about that.
Dude.
That little stance he does where
He's looking up at him, yeah.
homie's towering over him, and he's just looking up at him like, well, shit.
And he went to swing on him. That's what made it. Is like, and that's what I love about professional wrestling is there's so much dynamics and such stuff that you can relate to. Like, you know, a tired soldier who's fought all day, thinks he's finally got a second, and then more stuff comes at him and he's got to fight again. And the fact that Alexander Knight was like, well, here we go again, round two. And he goes to swing. And can I just say that I'm going to. Alpha Akana, I believe is his name, correct? The new guy.
That's right.
He has the most beautiful choke slam I've ever seen in my life. This is all that I've talked about. Is that black hole spin into the choke slam was just phenomenal. I love it so much. It's great.
The beautiful thing about this whole thing is that it was, first of all, it was constructed out of necessity. And so, like, we had originally had an idea for somebody else to be used in that role, and that kind of fell through. And it just so happens that a month prior to this, we had Alpha Akana, who we call Big Ray. He tried out. And so it kind of worked. I would never normally put somebody in this soon.
Right.
But a couple of things were true. Number one, we needed somebody in that role. And number two, I could not have him just sitting out in the crowd because he was too much of a distraction. So I was like, well, so he's been back in the locker room for a little while. I want to also a tip of the hat to WWE, because when I say that they are leaders in the industry, I mean it. You know, we started doing the War, or Kentucky or Indiana's biggest battle royal, as our Royal Rumble, because the Royal Rumble was such a good idea and nobody else had come up with something like that. And it's the same way with the Money in the Bank briefcase. Do I like the briefcase aspect? No, I don't. But the idea that you use an object to kind of explain a number one contender spot is very, very genius, especially this whole idea of cashing it in. All that is smart, and that's why you see a lot of other indie companies, including us, do the same thing. Now, we had the Kentucky Classic as a standalone tournament to win this championship belt. Actually, the first time we had it, it was a trophy. And we wanted to keep the tournament, and we wanted to keep the prize, but we wanted the prize to mean something else. So why wouldn't it mean the same thing that a Money in the Bank briefcase means? So you can come out and pretty much exchange your championship, your belt, right there in the moment for a shot at another one. And whether or not you get it or not, good luck.
Yeah.
So, yes, the idea is definitely derivative of Money in the Bank. We definitely took that idea. And I don't blame anybody for stealing that idea. It's very smart, and it creates a lot of good I don't want to say spots, but we've created memories off of this championship so far. Well, earlier in the day, you know, we're running through everything. To give you all kind of a breakdown of how this even happens, like, it's me and it's Knight and it's Alpha Akana ringside. Everybody else is back in the locker room because we're not wanting everybody to know what's going on. It was a surprise to the locker room too. So Knight debates me a little bit on this. He says that he had mentioned doing the spin. I don't think so. I think I had said something about the spin. But either way, I told him, I said, look, he's got to hit something. He's got to hit something on you. Even talking about the standoffs, you know, when you've got Alexander Knight face-to-face with Alpha Akana, I'm telling Knight, I said, look, I got to have you low. I got to have you bent at the knees. You need to look shorter than you even shorter than you are against this guy. Now, I didn't expect he would go full on selling. It looked great. Knight looked like he was doubled over in pain, so you got the whole thing. Awesome. We're talking about camera angles and things. Drake is there working with our camera people on shooting low, so he looks taller, all this stuff. It all goes hand in hand. It's all magic tricks. But everything else, we're sitting there walking through. Knight told him, throw the punch, I'll catch the punch. That was all a great idea. We had talked about needing a move that he could do with minimal training that looked impressive. And clearly, when you're talking about a big guy like this, you can think of something as simple as a choke slam, but the problem with a choke slam is it's been overdone.
Right.
So I made the suggestion that he spins out with it, and Knight made the suggestion that he flattened out with it. I think Knight has it backwards. I think he said that I said it flattens out and he spins. Either way, one of those are the truth. And it was the mesh of all of it that made it what it was. But most importantly, you can complement those ideas. But unless Akana can get in the ring and deliver, it's not going to get over. And my God, that looked vicious.
It looked amazing.
It did. And what made me laugh, it made me laugh so hard watching people leaving, because I had looked around after everything had gone on. After as soon as they count 3, people started going towards the door, and a few people got out the door. Yeah. And then I went to go if we're gonna leave, we better get in the car now so we can get out of here. And or I'll hear her be like, "Are you sure you're not gonna hit anybody?" Because she backseat drives, and I'm like, "All right, well, let's get." And then I just stood there for a minute, and I was like, "No," I was like, "Something's off." I was like, "Something don't feel like the end of these shows normally go." I was like, usually after a win in the main event, they go around, they get their applause, and then they get out and they high five everybody and they go. And Alexander Knight he's still standing there, and I was like, maybe he's gonna talk, maybe he's gonna say something. And so I stood there for a minute, and then that music hit, and I just started laughing because I was like, this is like when you go to a Marvel movie and you walk out as soon as the credits start to roll. Don't do that.
No.
Don't leave immediately. And I kept telling Chelsea that, and my girlfriend's, I was like, hey, I was like, wrestling shows are kind of like a Marvel movie sometime. And I was like, and all those people just made the biggest mistake they could have made, because now those people had to find out secondhand this amazing little sequence that happens here. It was so good, and what I liked the most about it is nobody left looking weak. It was structured just perfect. I'm a big snob about that. I like, even when you lose, you kind of need to look good a little bit, especially Game Time Onyx. Ain't no slouch. That dude is solid.
Yeah, he's solid as a brick.
You see this grueling match, and then Alpha Akana comes out, chokeslam, Clay Williams comes out. Everybody got to have something. Nobody, as I was walking out listening to people talk, were like, the Onyx is a loser. Everybody was like, that match was incredible. But, the end of it, though, that little, where the guy comes out, the big fella, and then Clay Williams, that little shithead, people they were happy, excited, mad, disappointed, everything. Every feeling all at once. My girlfriend was like, yeah, that was so cool, but that Clay Williams, he won that title. And I was like, yeah, no. I was like, what did you think he was going to do?
I don't want to continue to harp on how bad other companies are, but this is a way to let you all know, as fans of what we do, that a lot of, this has been months in the making, what we're talking about. Just this little segment at the end of the show has been months in the making.
Right. A
lot of companies don't do that. A lot of companies are just, they'll show up to the show, so-and-so, you helped set up the ring, you're over, blah, blah, blah. They don't put in the time and the effort to the stories, the angles, and things like that.
Right.
We pay so much attention to even things, even before this started, I told Knight, I said, the moment you win, people are going to leave. And that means that what we have to do is, I said, I'm going to be quick on this. I said, I'm going to be quick on it. I'm back there running the music. I said, I'm going to be quick on it. And I had to be. Otherwise, you're right. People got out the door. I do hear some people got out through the door, turned around, and came back when they heard
A couple people did turn around, yeah.
The Marvel thing is that's a good comparison. I would even go far. This is like somebody walking out of a Marvel movie, not even before the credits roll, but right after Thanos has been beat. It's like there's still the rest of the movie. I would not, just for anybody listening that comes to WWE shows, I don't know if it's safe to leave until maybe you hear Falcon on the microphone telling everybody, hey, drive home safe. Because it's important in terms of storytelling. Probably one of the most important elements of pro wrestling storytelling is not just the element of surprise. So something may happen that could shock you, but also the cliffhanger element.
Yes.
you leave people wanting a little more explanation. So Clay Williams won the championship. What? Who is this guy that's with him? Is this going to be upheld? What's going on? What's the story here? We'll answer those questions in the coming months. But if you're not, as a fan, asking yourself these questions while leaving, then we've missed the mark.
Oh, no, you guys have hit it like head on. That's everybody's walking out. The only times that I'm walking out, because I do listen to what everyone's saying around me generally as much as I can. I'm nosy like that, and I'm just interested in what people feel. We've actually set up an episode to interview someone who's not a worker, who nothing, never taken a bump. We're going to interview like the modern wrestling fan. He's in his early 20s, because I want to put my finger on the pulse of where wrestling is. So I'm definitely going to listen to people. And, like, sometimes you'll hear, like, oh, I don't really like this guy. This guy needs a little bit he needs to do this or he needs to do that. Or I think this, armchair booking bullshit that you hear all the time. And then, like, this show particularly, that didn't happen at all. Everybody was like, who that big guy? We've seen him at some of the shows in the crowd before. Mm-hmm. Like, matter of fact, I think we saw him at Bowling Green, and he had come over to do something, like went over towards somebody to do something, and I was like, that dude is gigantic.
He got a bend down coming through the door.
I was like, I wonder how many people ask him if he plays basketball, because I got one really tall friend who that's the thing everyone asks him. He's like 6'7", 6'8", and everybody's like, do you play basketball? And he hates hearing it. He hates basketball. He hates everything. He's like, I'm a fat white guy, and I don't play basketball. And he's like, because I'm tall, you think I'm an athlete, or so this is bullshit. And he's so upset
the first time I met this guy, I said, how tall are you? I don't remember what he said, 6'9", something like that. I said,
my Lord.
Hell you are. I said, it's pro wrestling. You're 7 foot at least.
That's right.
7'2" in your boots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But my whole thing is when you talk about fans, I'm curious as to, first of all, do I know who you're going to interview that's just a wrestling fan?
Okay,
no, this is just some dude that Leon knows.
So his first show was the Litchfield show.
Yeah, we drug him and his girlfriend to Litchfield when we drug my girlfriend along.
He wrestled in high school, like. He was a runner-up champion, I think, 2 years in a row. So he's always had a love for wrestling. And I told him, I said, there's this company that we go to every Saturday. We've interviewed some of the guys. We've interviewed the owner, the co-founder, both the Waddell brothers. We've interviewed a bunch of their guys. They're awesome. I said, why don't you come to the show with us?
You notice how he put himself over before?
I did not. No, I didn't. I did. I kind of did. Anyway, I said, why don't you come to this show with us? And I said, you're going to love it. And he said, all right. Yeah, sure, whatever. So he came, and the only thing that he talked about the entire drive home was, man, that was a really good show. I said, dude, for what we pay to get in the door, you won't find anything better. I said, everybody on that roster has a love for the business. They don't really care about money more than they do about the interaction and stuff with the fans. He said, yeah, I can really feel that. And he said, I think I'm going to keep going with y'all. So we plan on taking him also every show we go to if he's able to, because it's amazing. We've had to start
reserving an extra ticket every single time. The number keeps going up and up and up.
See, I love to get the perspective of fans who have not fallen into more of a warped opinion on what the business should be. So somebody who might be new to the business, because those are the opinions you want. Somebody who's not a usual customer. Because the whole thing is, if you're only focused on what the usual customer says, then at the end of the day, you're not going to grow and get new customers.
Exactly.
I want to know how we appeal to wider audiences. So on one hand, you want to keep your bread and butter, happy, satisfied. But on the other hand, what are people wanting? But I will say that the issue with wrestling fans, first of all, when I was growing up on wrestling, there was no such thing as an armchair booker.
Yep, correct.
I'm not saying there weren't dirt sheets. Maybe there were, but not as far as me, as far as my friend group and people who watch wrestling. We didn't watch, WWF Raw and WCW Nitro, and then during the show we're thinking they should have did this, they should have done that, blah, blah, blah. We just consumed it. I'm not saying that we liked everything like we liked everything else, but instead of hating it, we just really relied on what else was going on. If we didn't like, let's say we were not fans of Los Boricuas,
Deep
flip
cut.
off of WWF, and we might turn on WCW. And if we turn on WCW and they had Jerry Flynn, we might turn back on WWF Raw. The point is it's not that we hated anything or that we thought things should be different. We just really focused on what we liked. Well, now, since the internet, that damned old internet,
I hate it.
wrestling fans, and this is, I think, just culture issues. Like, I think this is like this no matter what you do. Any kind of scripted entertainment that you turn on, I think people are like this on the internet. They're like, I would have done that. I would have did this. The biggest thing that I can tell anybody in the business is you focus on the reaction, but don't focus on the opinion. Because at the end of the day, and this is the reason why I just don't watch WWE. Instead of me turning on WWE and being like, well, they should have did this or they should have did that. It's counterproductive. It's not healthy. And that's just why I don't watch, because the things that they do are not the things that I would do.
Right.
And because I'm jaded on the business, it makes it hard to watch. A wrestling fan, you shouldn't be jaded on it. So, like, you should either just like what you're watching or don't like it. If you don't like it, turn it off. But when people start having these opinions, I would urge any wrestling fan listening to me right now, if you can hear what I'm saying, get ready to timestamp the bleep. Just shut the fuck up. Just stop. Just get out of your head. Stop worrying about it. Either watch and enjoy it or shut up. Because at the end of the day, you do not understand where these stories are going, right? You can't, as a wrestling fan, understand every little bit of every little thing. When I'm sitting at a booking table and I got 30 names of people that has to be booked, there's a reason why everybody's in the place that they are. Because if you take one out and you put him somewhere else, then everything else has to change, right? If you start to put matches in a certain position, you know, and you're like, well, I'd rather this be here. Okay, because it works better for the show. And then a fan go, well, that should have been the main event. You don't know, bro. You don't know.
Yeah, you have no idea.
How can you say those things if you don't know? I don't experience a lot in the WWA, but I see a lot of fans on the internet talk about WWE, who they think should have won, who they think should main event WrestleMania, who they think should do this. And it's so ridiculous to me because you have no idea what the long-term plan is. Just sit back and enjoy it or shut up.
Oh yeah, like my attitude about, like, me and my brother had kind of we had a thing about watching wrestling because we were the only two kids in our neighborhood that really liked wrestling. Everybody else was just like, ugh, suck it, and, you know, like Stone Cold. No, I went to school wearing like a Diamond Dallas Page shirt. Like, I was into wrestling, and so we would have upstairs would be Nitro because we had a legal cable, so it could split to the upstairs TV that was literally like one of the first color TVs because we were poor. That's what we can get our hands on. It was one of the first color TVs. The imaging was terrible. But we had Monday Nitro up there, and then our stepdad would get drunk and watch Monday Night Raw because he liked to see, I guess, like Stone Cold and DX and stuff. 'Cause he wasn't a real wrestling fan either. But we would, like, consume it. And then instead of sitting there and being like, oh man, you know, Stone Cold should hit 2 stunners on McMahon, we were listening to JR and Jim, we're listening to JR and Jerry the King Lawler, like, call the match and call the moves. So eventually we could turn the volume on the TV down and run upstairs between each segment and commentate the match the way we would do it. Or we'd watch like Shotgun Saturday Morning or whatever the Saturday morning show was called. We would watch that show with the volume down and commentate it because we wanted to have fun. So my attitude about, like, oh, this is who I think should do this, or I've stayed away from that by being like, this is who I would like to see. I would like to see this guy get into a position where he could do this. That would be awesome. But I'm realistic. Yep. Not everyone's going to main event WrestleMania. I mean, there's a very
stark difference
between
this is what I would like to happen and this is what they should have done. There's a big difference in those. They shouldn't have done any one thing to appeal to any one person. I just think about how complicated writing storylines is for us in the WWA, and then I apply it to the WWE, and I'm thinking, oh my God, like how much effort has to go into booking their shows, and I hats off to them because it's very, very complicated. So for fans to think that they should have done something different as opposed to looking at it like you do, which is, well, I would have liked to see this.
Yes.
There's a big difference in those two things. I think people need to make sure that they're on the right side of that argument.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that nobody hates wrestling more than wrestling fans.
That's right.
Either, so it doesn't really. Like nobody hates wrestling more than wrestling fans.
Crazy?
Well, it's every fandom. Like you can name something that has a large following, and I can say that exact phrase. I do it all the time. I'll go into like different threads because I'm a huge nerd. I like everything that makes vaginas go away, pretty much. Magic the Gathering and like Star Wars and Marvel and
Power
DC
Rangers.
Power Rangers. I have a Power Rangers morpher at the
I
house.
totally don't have mine right across the
We're
room.
sitting next to another. He bought him as pairs and gave it to me for my birthday. It was the sweetest thing in the world. I wanted to kiss him, but I like all this stuff. So I will go into these threads and just read stuff like, Star Wars. They're talking about the last 3 Star Wars movies. Not a fan of the last 3 Star Wars movies. That's fine. That's not how I would have did it. That's why Disney didn't hire me to do it. That's fine. But people get on there and be like, Star Wars has been shit since episode 3, terrible ending, blah, blah, blah. But yet you paid cash money to go watch all these films. Mm-hmm. No, I didn't. I pirated them. You paid for your internet bill just to watch these movies. I can break it down for you. Nobody hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans. Nobody hates heavy metal more than especially heavy metal. Nobody hates heavy metal more than heavy metal fans. It's the worst. It's so weird to me.
It's sad. It's sad. I think I just had a debate that I feel like. Did we talk Star Wars last time I was on?
I don't think so.
I don't remember. I was hitting his vape pretty hard.
That Benjamin was getting him.
I just had a conversation the other day with some other Star Wars fans because I'm a big Star Wars fan.
Huge,
actually, I was about 10 years old when I first discovered it. They had re-released, I think after, it would have had to have been, it came out 77, 87, 97. So it had been 20 years they re-released on the VHS box set. They come out with the 3.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, when I was talking about the best Star Wars film, I said that's easy. It's called Rogue One. And they straight out just said, what? And then, of course, told me all the reasons. But I can lay out the reasons why Rogue One was my favorite Star Wars movie. But at the end of the day, I can tell you all the reasons why I like Rogue One, while that's my pick. At the end of the day, to try to change minds by almost crapping on the other movies is not the way to do it. I can find something I like in every single Star Wars movie. It's the way when I'm watching WWE, I can find something that I like about something. But I just think we're in this culture now where it's all about finding the negative, and that's unfortunate.
See, and I got to throw out there, I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong, but Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars movie. And
easy now, because you might have to settle that in the ring someday.
Listen, I'll never again. But I stole my reason. I didn't really steal my reasoning. I more stole my wording from Kevin Smith as to why I prefer Empire. Because it's such a reflection on what life is. Life is a series of down notes. Look at Empire Strikes Back. Luke finds out Vader's his father, gets his hand cut off. Han gets frozen, taken away by Boba Fett. That is exactly the line from Clerks. It ends on such a down note, but it gives you hope for the next movie. That's what Kevin didn't say, is it gives you hope for the next movie. That whenever Return of the Jedi and all the Muppets were everywhere, like, that movie was a very hopeful movie. The first movie was called A New Hope, but you can really just kind of apply that to I saw a video where you can switch all the names around for the 9 movies and how they all make sense assigned to a different movie. But like that movie, that was the down point, so we can get to the climax of the story. That's the most important part of that story. But I ain't trying to change minds here. I just like to say Empire, because that's my jam, that's my jelly, that's my peanut butter and my peanuts.
You're not getting heat with me. I love them all. I can consume other than the TV shows, which I don't like too much. I'm a big cinema guy, and a big Star Wars guy. So all of them, even the newest 3 films, I loved them all. So, but my thing is, what you just touched on something important. If wrestling fans could see the same thing, it's not necessarily about looking at that movie as everything you want it to be. Just keep in mind, sometimes it is to set up something different. Sometimes somebody loses to be able to set up something else, or sometimes these cards are laid out in a certain way to kind of preface something bigger that's going to happen down the line. We have to tell stories weekly. So every week, our shows, and this is why I know that what we do is art. when we're sitting at a booking table. It's me, it's Ray Waddell, it's Alexander Knight, it's Munchie Gonzalez, and it's Dakota France. And every single week we sit down there at that booking table, and we have to find a way to write a show that is not only going to coincide with the storylines we have going, keep telling those stories, but it has to create new stories, and
Yes.
the show itself has to stand alone. So if you're somebody that's never seen any of these stories and you don't know what the hell is going on, you can still show up and know what's going on by watching that show. So it's very, very complicated. It's an art. I wish people would give more grace to the storytellers as opposed to just harping on what they didn't want or what they would have changed.
Oh, dude, it's so terrible. Like, you have to apply the Stan Lee rule. That's, if you want a good story, I call it the Stan Lee rule. At the beginning of every Marvel comic, there was always, at least it was back in the 90s, I don't know how it is now that he's gone, but in, like, when I was a kid, I would pick up, like, you know, Spider-Man issue, you know, whatever number we were on. And in the very beginning, there would be like a little picture of Stan Lee or like a little animated picture of Stan Lee. You know, so they drew himself up to look like a comic book character. And it was always him explaining just a very brief breakdown of what's going on in the story. And then, you know, it would say Excelsior or whatnot at the bottom, which is like some kind of motto to mean like, let's go. And then he did an interview years later and they were like, what was that about? And he was like, I wanted everyone to pick up a comic book as if it was their first comic book.
Yep.
Sometimes you don't have the luxury to walk into the comic book store and find Incredible Hulk #1 on the wall because Incredible Hulk #1 has already sold out and the only issues that are left are now expensive. So you might have to pick up in the story with Incredible Hulk #47. But in 47, I am going to tell you what happened from 1 through 46 in, you know, the best way I can in a short version. If you have that rule, if anyone can just pick up your product in the middle of it and get some enjoyment out of it, you win. You've won. You've done something right, which is where I kind of wanted to go into about, like, you guys are 15 years out of the backyard. All we've been talking about is moving forward. I roughly estimated 15 years out of the backyard, just based off listening to system shoots, like them talking about it.
No, that's right. 2010, we were shut down in our backyard. Yeah, and we run our first legitimate show in 2010. So the same year we're out of the backyard is the same year that we became an official company.
Yeah, I mean, that's a long time for an indie promotion to run anyway. And so well, we've been talking this whole time about evolution and being able to move and understand. So, like, where do you think your next 15 years goes with this?
You know, I've been asked of different degrees of that question in the past, and I am very hesitant to give you an answer because this isn't quite what I would have pictured for us 15 years ago. And I'm not saying that's better or worse. I'm just saying that, you know, there was a point where I was telling my guys, hey, look, if in 10 years you're not making money off of this, by all means, let's quit. Let's pack up shop and stop. But then you realize it's more about the dollar, and it's more than the dollar. It's more about the passion. And I don't know. I can see things like just hindsight being 2020. I can see things that I wish we were a little farther on. But then there are things that I'm like, wow, I could have never imagined this, you know, back in 2010. 15 years from now, if I'm not dead, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to long-term versus short-term goals. Long-term, it's got to be the glaringly obvious answer, which is more asses and seats, more eyes on our product.
Yeah.
How that happens, now I don't know. That's a little more complicated question. When we realized that you couldn't just up and get TV, because I was all, you know, back in 2010, I might have been sure that in 5 years there were going to be some station or some company that wanted to pick us up and feature us on TV. But in 2010, you didn't really know that it was all going to be about streaming. And streaming is similar. You know, you need somebody to pick you up. So then we went into we went down the road of the YouTube choice. And when we did that, it was based on the idea that you could monetize off YouTube. Well, now they have a very weird, like, wrestling sits in this weird category of, like, can you or can't you monetize off of it? I know WWE is, but it's hard for indie companies to do so because they look at it as violent, which is just ridiculous anyway. But anyway, so that I'm not off on a tangent, what I mean is I saw us doing different things then but I also have found that we're doing things now that I could have never imagined. I think it would be the short-term goals that would be easier to pinpoint. The one thing that made me fall in love with our brand is the camaraderie of our company. The fact that when you showed up to a show, you weren't just talking to other wrestlers about what you all were doing that night. You were talking to your friends, people that you not only trusted, but that you actually enjoyed. So that way, it was a break from like your real life, your mundane life. The wife's giving you shit at home. Okay, it's fine. You got wrestling this weekend. You're having trouble with your boss or your coworkers. It's okay. You're going to be able to rant about that to the boys on the weekend. Car trouble, house trouble, financial trouble, whatever is happening in your life during the week. At the end of the week, you got the WWA and you got the boys in it who you rely on. That is what we've done. But I do feel like, as far as extracurricularly, the guys are not spending as much time with each other outside of show day. I would like to see short term. My goal is to get those guys to hang out and experience that friendship outside of quote work. So that's a short term goal that sounds kind of. I know you were probably hoping for something a little more juicy, but like.
No.
That's the one thing that I thought wouldn't be obvious, because obviously it's more eyes on the product, more asses in the seats. But also, something else we're doing that may not be as popular with a lot of the people who see themselves, where we talked about it last time I was on your podcast, is visually, the WWA has to keep evolving. So visually, we have to make sure that we're not bringing in these potbelly t-shirt wrestlers.
Right.
These have to be guys that look like athletes. That's the only way that more people take you serious. That's the only way that more people watch your product. And it's the only way that you can compete with the other, top name wrestling companies. So that's a goal. Focus on our production is another big goal. How can we? It gets expensive when you're talking about production.
It does.
So I just saw somebody commented on one of our posts. They said the person that does the posters or the graphics needs a raise. And whereas I'm like, hell yeah, you see how good our posters are. On the other hand, I'm like, no, they don't need a raise. I don't need a But that's a good thing. That's a good thing. People are noticing. So I know that people notice when more work is gone into our production, and because of that, we're going to keep on. That's always been our bread and butter. At the end of the day, even if you see wrestlers you didn't like, you stand in awe of the WWA when you compare it to other companies, and you go, man, the production there is good. So it's like, how can we keep within our financial means turning up the expectation on our product, because that's what we want.
Yeah,
that's 1,000%. And I am going to.
Wonderful.
I have one final bullet point. And I saved this for last. I saved this as the wrap up. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell y'all a little story. So as I was getting ready for the MK podcast that we just did the other day with MK Swift.
Right.
That dude is amazing. I listened to System Shoots talk to him. I see Leon's face. He knows what I'm going to bring up. You said you didn't listen to that show, Chris, but they called you into that show. And you are the only other person I have ever talked to before who knew what gay chicken was.
What do you mean they called me into that show? Were they talking about gay chicken? They called me out on it?
No, they called you. They called you while they were doing it.
Oh, I was stoned as hell, yeah.
Yeah, they called you and they were like, because they were arguing what chicken was, and then you brought up gay chicken, and I started laughing. Now, I'm at work with my headphones in, and nobody knows what I'm listening to, so all they see is just somebody go, like really loud, and so I had to stop, and I told MK that. I was like, that's the only time I've ever heard gay chicken talked about. And he was like, well, what do you think it is? And I said, well, it's when two dudes line up and they grab each other by the dick, and then whoever gets hard loses or wins, however you want to look at it. So I wrote down on the paper, I wrote everything down as a bullet point. That's how I have to do it, or I'm going to get off track. So like one of these things just says, which I skipped it, but it just says celebrity at show, which we're going to skip that because it's going to start a political rant on my part.
We'll do part 3, man.
But one of it just says gay chicken, underline, underline, underline. That's all it says. And I was like, yes, but you are the only person who has ever said those words in that order besides like me or my brother or one of our really, really messed up on our level cousins. And you have no idea how happy that made me.
Listen, my whole thing though is that like, and I don't know who listens, but this may be a little TMI. But my whole thing is, when I was growing up, I knew I was bisexual,
right?
And I knew that there were certain things that turned me on that didn't turn normal people on. And dudes kissing was one of it. I mean, I was like 11. I was maybe 11 or 12. I don't know. I know kids are a lot younger when they are exposed to this stuff now, but for me, it was 11, 12 years old. And I remember the first time I'd ever seen guys kiss. And so what that would do is, as I got a little older and the internet came into existence, I'm not that damn old. The internet existed, but as the internet became more accessible to my house and other people's houses, I would find videos of people playing gay chicken. And they were straight dudes playing gay chicken.
Yeah.
And that did everything for me. I was like, hell yeah. Like, and so I don't remember exactly what I said on that podcast because, again, I was a little under the influence. But I'm pretty sure that I said I could not be beat. And I mean that because, look, whereas I'm not attracted to every man out there, I will say that unless you got a very screwed up grill, there ain't a man out there I wouldn't kiss. So I'll put it to you this way. If somebody challenged me to a game of gay chicken, my question is, how far would it go? Because we would play, if they were really good, if they were really talented at this game, then that means they would kiss back. Where does it stop? You make out? Where does it go to full-on sex? If that's the point, I still win. Where does it stop?
It doesn't, and that's the fun thing. That's what makes it chicken, is when does it stop? It has no limits. Yeah, I can't think. It don't
stop. It starts with a game of gay chicken, and it ends with a game of gay marriage is what it does. So
yeah, you end up just gaslighting yourself into marrying your buddy, which, I mean... which is fine. I saw some kind of skit online
Chuck
the other
and Larry.
day. I saw some kind of skit of two dudes that were in like MAGA shirts or something, and it was like, Biden and Harris gonna make us all get gay married. So me and Jimmy, we went ahead and beat them to the punch. We got married because we wanted to, and they go to kiss each other, and it's really weird. So they like side kiss, and then he's like, that's right, sticking it to the Dems, and then they walk away. And I was like, dude,
right here, your podcast is going to set a standard. Right here, we should normalize bros kissing bros. We should. That should be like the new. Hey, how are you, buddy? How's life been treating you? Just kiss each other.
Well, we just launched merch. Like, we're trying to get it produced. So I think that's the next shirt. Leon, come on, dude. That's the next shirt.
I'm not going to wear a "Hey, Casey, what we doing next" type deal. No.
Oh, no, dude. I'm going to just put on there balls and wieners.
Of course you are.
Yes.
Yeah, of course you are.
Who's the guest on the next podcast?
If everything goes correct, I should have the Golden Gods on Monday.
Hopefully. We're hoping.
We're hoping for it.
Oh, good God. Okay, well, I'm just saying, whenever you all get together, do you record together or one of you remote?
No.
We're in my studio room.
Notice how he's like, we're in my studio.
Yeah,
my
it is.
studio.
It is. My
That's
room.
perfect. The next time you all gather in your studio, make sure you all kiss each other hello.
Yes. I tell people at work we do this anyway, and they believe it. He's just very resistant to it, and it hurts my feelings.
Listen here now, big fella.
Look, we made our merch and we wear it to we wore it to the Litchfield show, and I was like, dude, everyone's gonna think we're a couple because we're matching, and I'm here for it. Like,
You know what? We just have to work on making this stuff normal. I'll tell you what, Leon, when I meet you for the first time, I'll kiss you on the mouth and water under the bridge from there.
Yeah.
and it. See, here's the thing: is we're setting up to start doing these in person. Just a spoiler to everybody: we are currently in talks with. We're trying to find a venue because Munchie Gonzalez is going to meet us in a halfway point in Owensboro as soon as one of these assholes gets back to me about the venue I'm trying to get. Just something so I don't have to do it in my mother's apartment. Right. We're going to have Munchie on, and I'm going to make sure that every single guest we have kisses Leon on the mouth.
Hell yes.
I will end all of you.
Munchie will do it just because he's
probably
just down
will,
for whatever, man. He leaves.
Let me give you a tip. As a guy that has spent my entire life in a locker room with a bunch of swinging dicks, here is the way to really stop people, because the locker room play is real. People will do anything they can to try to make you uncomfortable. The easiest way to get them to stop is to lean into it.
Yes.
So like if somebody starts approaching you with a kiss and you don't want it, pucker up and lean in.
Yeah.
Pucker up and lean in. Somebody trying to grab at your dick, let them. Yes. And they'll stop, because these are straight dudes. They don't actually want to kiss you or want to. Now, it runs into a bit of a situation with people like Munchie, who's gay as hell. He'll probably just stick.
Don't worry, Munchie. We still love you, buddy. It's okay.
Munchie listens to these.
Yes,
too.
he does. We still love you, Munchie. It's all right.
When we do our podcast, every day he'll lean back on that couch and just be talking, and he'll always leave just a titty out, just for me.
Funny story about that. So I took. Of course, we took our other halves to their first show together, and Munchie had a little bit of a wardrobe slip, and my wife's sitting there beside me, and she goes, "His nipple's showing." And I said, "Yes, that happens when you wear a singlet like that."
I didn't know this happened.
Yes, we're sitting there, and she goes, "It's like out." I said, "Yes, it is." She goes, "It's like really there." And I said, "Yes, it is. Now will you watch the match?" And I was like, "It happens, and it's perfectly okay. It's all right."
Guys, I can't think of a better way that I could wrap this so I can go feed a kid. My old lady's going to feed the other one. I'm going to feed this one. Guys, I can't think of a better way to end this. I think we're definitely going to have to do it again.
Part 3. That'd be wonderful.
Listen, that was going to be the way I said it needed to end, is you promised me a part 3, because, again, I feel like we've covered everything and covered nothing all at the same time.
That's right.
Well, that's what I love about this show. That's what MK Swift said. He goes, "You know what's really funny about this?" He goes, "I've only done 2 of these." He said, "But both times we ended up having so much fun that we didn't even cover most of what I wanted to talk about." Santos just straight up was like, I was like, "All right, guys, you know, doing my outro," and he goes, "Hold on just a minute, because I want to tell a story." And I was like, "Tyler, by all means, you tell a story." And so he did, and it was the most like nothing story in the whole wide world, but I loved it. And
bless that kid's heart.
It was just the whole point of the story was one time I went to Mexico. That's what it was. It was one time I went to Mexico, and it wasn't like we saw a donkey show.
Yeah.
None of these. It was just I was a kid, and my uncle took me to Mexico, and I was like, "That's what's up."
He's like, "I got in the ring, and yeah, it was cool." And I was like,
Yeah,
"Awesome."
he goes, "It was cool," and I was like, "I love you so much. I just want to hold you." But yeah, we're definitely gonna have to do it. What I really want to do is I want to do it in person, because this would be hilarious.
A part 3 would be wonderful in person.
I would love to do it. I'm gonna make.
And you might have to let me know after you're done recording if you don't want to say, but do you have venues in mind in the Owensboro area?
I've hit up, so it's gonna be like I've only hit up a couple. Like my mom's a server at Old Hickory down there in Owensboro, and they have like a back room, and they rent it out to like the Republican convention and the Democrat convention sometimes. So I asked her, I said, "Hey, how much does that cost me to rent that back room? It's quiet back there." You know, I was like, I could feed Munchie there, like we take him out to dinner and just have it like a little bit more of a moment. So maybe we can unlock some real good shit. I was like, that's the best way I could figure to do it. Yeah. And she was like, "Yeah, I can get you on the books." And then she's like, "But we just started serving beer, and that's where we keep our beer. So servers will be coming in and out." And I was like, "No, if I'm in that room, you have to tell everybody to stay out." And she's like, "Yeah, I can't." So I called Owensboro Soundstage, and they were like, "Yeah, we rent rooms. We just don't like to we let one guy handle it, and he'll just talk to you about your budget. And then when he gave me the budget, I said, holy shit. So the only venue so far I have figured out location to do is telling Munchie to meet me over on Carter Road in my mom's apartment. Be like, hey, you gonna come sit in my mom's living room while no one's home and sit on her couch where she has like a camera pointed at the door because she's old and scared of everything, and she will 100% from her phone turn that camera and say, who's that nice Hispanic boy sitting on the couch? I can hear it. And it's a fucking nightmare. It's a nightmare. It keeps me up at night because I know it's what's going to happen. And then my son will be like, decide that's where he's getting off the bus, and he'll just bust in the door on his crutches because he blew his meniscus getting up off the couch. And like, this is the one that wants to wrestle.
Sam, he blew his meniscus like 3 days after the podcast.
He blew his whole knee out getting up off the couch. And so he'll bust in with his crutches. He'll be like Chris Farley in that SNL skit, like, hey, Munchie, you remember when you hit the cutter? That was awesome. Like, that's what will happen while we're recording. So I'm trying to figure it out. I just don't. It's hard. It's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
But we would love to travel.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was just going to say, like, we would love to travel and get to talk with guys in person, because there's more chemistry, I feel like, when you're in person with the people.
Yes.
Than there is just across the phone. So.
Yeah, there might be, and I've never priced them out, but there are also conference rooms and things like that, and hotels and stuff. I have no idea.
Never thought about that.
They rent those for, but if they're too expensive, you can always get a room, and Leon, that's where you can practice your first game.
A hotel room, the Cadillac. All right, I just got ideas. I'll write them.
We're not going to that hotel where the hobos are out on the street.
We're going to the meth whore hotel.
No, we're not.
We're taking Munchie.
No. God, no, we're not going there.
Hey, look, count me in.
See what I'm saying? Dude, this could be a whole thing. And that guy asks 0 questions. He'll just see cameras and microphones and computers. He thinks we're shooting a dirty movie. And you know what? By the end of it, he might be right. So that's where we're going to end, because tonight, while Samuel is listening to this show, after it gets posted, he's going to turn around and look at his mother and say, what is Dad talking about? And then she gets to explain it to him. This is going to be hilarious. I had to explain crack whore last time, so she can explain this one. Guys, we love you. We thank you very much for listening. I'm going to go throw some chicken nuggets down the 8-year-old's neck, and I will holler at y'all later.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.